We have an opportunity for a while here, more in depth, to talk to one of the candidates on your June 7th primary ballot. The sample ballot now being received in homes, and the ballots themselves will be going out very soon, as this is California. Everybody's getting a mail-in ballot, whether you're going to use it or not. In the race for California Attorney General, there are 5 names on the ballot. And the candidate we're going to talk to now, she's been on the show a number of times before, is the District Attorney of Sacramento County, listed as no party preference. Anne-Marie Schubert is in studio.
Anne-Marie, welcome.
Thank you for having me back.
Wait, turn her microphone on. It even helps. Okay. And Eric Siddall is with her. Eric is with the Assistant District Attorneys Association of Los Angeles. He's the vice president, right?
That's correct.
And we've had him on a number of times recently about the recall. Anne-Marie, we'll start with you. What do you... I say this a lot on the air, and it sounds like a cliche about a lot of issues. I don't know normal people who are for all these progressive criminal justice obsessions that seem to be so popular now. And I wonder, how did this all happen? It almost seems like there was a coup while we were all sleeping.
It's a tsunami. That's what I've called it for a long time, that we've seen over the last several years. And listen, most folks are just living their lives and hopefully never impacted by crime. But then when they are, they're like, what do you mean they're going to let this guy out after X amount of time? Or what do you mean they're going to, not file a special circumstance? And so now we've got these very clear signs when you have someone like Gascon in office who drops a bomb on December 7th of 2020 and institutes all these orders to his prosecutors, some of which were illegal. So it's that's why I'm running for AG. We're at this point where people have to make a decision. How do you want to live in this beautiful state? Is this how you want to raise your children?
Do you think people are connecting their votes to all the changes that have happened in criminal justice over the last few years? Do they understand the votes that they took, not only the people but the propositions?
I think they're, the key issues for Californians right now are violent crime, rampant theft that we're seeing almost every day in a viral video, and this epidemic of drug addiction, mental health, and homelessness. And so people are like, this is not the world I signed up for. And so now more and more folks are being impacted by violent crime, and they're realizing the consequences of crime. And so I do think they're making those connections. Eric and I have been in this world for a long time. We've been sounding the alarms. Like in Sacramento, big topic is early release from prison, right? And we've been sounding the alarms for years about these various policies that are coming out, whether it's the legislature, whether it's the voters that were kind of duped into voting for things. But it is all coming to a head. And, when you let 27,000 inmates out of state prison since March of 2020, it's probably not going to be a good combination. And then you have rampant guns, in our communities and all these things that we're seeing. So
the 20,000, when they proposed Prop 47, if you remember, it was the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act.
Right.
And actually it was basically legalizing theft.
Correct.
Up to $950. And drugs, right? And then Prop 57 was supposed to be about letting nonviolent prisoners out earlier.
Right.
And it turned out to be a wholesale dumping, including violent prisoners.
Right, because in part, people need to remember, and we've been saying this for a long time, is crimes that everybody knows and thinks are violent, such as domestic violence, drugging and raping a woman, human trafficking of a child, those are non-violent under the law. And so we've been saying this for years, trying to change that. But our legislature, even our current, quote, attorney general, they fight all of these challenges. I mean, if you're going to be an advocate for true public safety, then get in the trenches and actually do what you should be doing.
But see, what the dynamic is that the public is consistently lied to with these propositions. The commercials are pure propaganda, just out and out lies. You got somebody like Jerry Brown who was pushing it from the very top. And then a couple of years later, after the policy's fully implemented, everybody goes, what the hell? Well, you voted for this. No, I didn't vote for that.
Right.
And I don't know what to do about that, because as long as we have...
Run for office.
Yeah. Eric, what are you finding in L.A.? Are people aware of what's going on? Because you're dealing with Gascon and the recall and all that. Are people more aware now?
I think they are. I think they're acutely aware of what's going on. They see it in their neighborhood. There's a reason why George Gascon's approval ratings are between 20 to 30% in Los Angeles County, is because people are sick and tired of watching their neighborhoods get destroyed by violent criminals that we're not going to prosecute or that we're not going to hold accountable. And people now look, when I first became a DA, no one knew who my boss was. No one. Now everyone does. And they don't know who my boss is because he's doing a great job. They know who my boss is because he's doing an awful job for the people of Los Angeles County. It's one of the reasons why our association supported Anne Marie in the Attorney General's race, because we need an Attorney General who's out there, who's going to supervise prosecutors, make sure that our district attorneys are actually doing their job. One of the unknown obligations of the Attorney General is to supervise the district attorneys when they're not doing their job. The fact that we had to sue our DA to do the job of DA is outrageous. The fact that the Attorney General of California refused to hold Gascon accountable is outrageous. And that's why we need a new Attorney General in California. That's why we need Anne Marie Schubert.
Anne Marie, what would you do with a Gascon Chesa-Boudin type? Let's say you become Attorney General and you have one of these characters, and he has these wholesale policies that some of which are illegal. What can you do? What are the real legal powers?
Well, you have the constitutional authority and perhaps the duty to step in. There's an actual argument out there that says if you adopt blanket policies, meaning I'm just going to not prosecute any of these certain types of crimes, that's actually illegal. So as the AG, listen, I've done this my whole life. I'm not a power-hungry person. I don't want to go into some county and tell you need to do your job. But if they're not going to do it, then I will do it. And the thing that I've said, the best example perhaps is when Gascon came out and said, I'm not going to parole hearings. I don't care how dangerous the dude is. Maybe he's committed serious violations in prison. I don't care if he killed 15 people or 20 people, but I'm never sending anybody to parole hearing. The only thing I'm ever going to do, he says, is I'm going to write a letter of support to let him out. That just tells you his perspective, right? So now you have folks like Jessica Corday, who lost her child to a murder, who has to sit at a parole hearing by herself. I've made it very clear, if you're not going to do that, Gascon, I'm going to do it. And quite frankly, where's Rob Bonta, the one that is now all of a sudden acting like he's a law and order Attorney General when everybody's upset about crime? Step in and do the job. He won't. He's aligned with Gascon. People in Los Angeles need to understand that they are the ideological soulmates together. He endorsed him. He supports him. He hands cases back to Gascon so Gascon can do what he pleases with those cases.
All right, let's take a break. We're talking to Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert, who's on your ballot for Attorney General. No party preference. She's joined by Eric Siddall with the LA County Association of Deputy District Attorneys. More coming up.
John and Ken, KFI.
All right, we're with Sacramento District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert, who's on the ballot for Attorney General of California to try to knock out the incumbent Rob Bonta. With her is Eric Siddall with the Association of LA County Deputy District Attorneys. I don't know, Anne Marie, if you saw the Los Angeles Times, of course, endorsed Bonta for a full term as Attorney General. Pretty much dismissed you as maybe you should be running against Gascon and Boudin in San Francisco or L.A. for DA there, because they didn't think you're making the case statewide for why you should be the Attorney General. How do you respond to that?
Well, in a sense, we are running against Gascon and Chesa because Rob Bonta is the same. They are cut from the same fabric. Bonta's championed many of the same policies, whether it's going to be zero bail, whether it's diversion for certain types of crimes, early release, those kinds of things. So it is critically important that folks, especially in Los Angeles, understand the connection between George Gascon and Rob Bonta, because if you all think what's going on here in Los Angeles is a good thing, then maybe Bonta's your guy. But if you think that, we're dismantling the justice system from within that office by his directives and the people he's now hiring from the public defender's office and all that, this is destroying public safety in L.A.
You mentioned before how he's not intervening with Gascon or Chesa-Boudin. Is there policies at the state level that he is pushing that is doing destructive things on his own, not just neglecting to rein in those two, but there's certain policies that are damaging.
One good thing is one good example is 45 elected DAs are suing the Department of Corrections over early releases. Listen, they're adopting what basically rewriting sentencing laws in California to allow 76,000 inmates out of prison early, over and above, reducing sentences from what judges imposed. Rob Bonta's defending that. And to me, I don't even know how you can defend it when you have somebody that commits a horrific act of, say, domestic violence with a long record of violence that now can get out if they have their way at perhaps a third of their sentence. So yes, he's going to adopt everything that's similar. He's a champion for zero bail, which has been caused nothing but havoc in communities across the state.
76,000. I think we're down to 95,000 left in prison.
It's everybody except for people on death row or life without parole. So it is virtually the entire prison population. Of course, if they have their way, they're going to try to change that as well.
I was going to say there's a lot of nasty, violent people they're going to be letting out.
Well, Eric can answer this, but the people that go to prison now are the most dangerous people that have earned a trip to prison.
Explain that, Eric, because you actually prosecute these people. You have to be pretty bad to get it and end up in a state prison with a long prison term, right?
Right. It's usually just the most violent offenders who are eventually sent to prison. People who have committed attempted murder, armed robbery with a gun, rape, child molestation, murder. Those are the types of people now that occupy our state prison. People are not in state prison because of drug possession. That's just not true. And I think that's one of the false narratives that you have people like Bonta, Gascon, Boudin playing. They're trying to make people believe that our prisons are full of non-violent criminals, and that's just bogus.
Why do they want violent people running amok by the tens of thousands? What is the impetus for this philosophy? I don't see an upside. They must. What is it?
It's about letting people out of prison and not holding people accountable. It's just essentially being pro-criminal versus supporting accountability.
Look, I think there's a philosophy that these guys have, the three of them, and that is that the entire criminal justice system in America is corrupt at its core, and you have to dismantle it and destroy it. And that's their philosophy. And that's why they want to end prisons. George Gascon put into place people in the district attorney's office from the public defender's office who have openly advocated for the abolition of prisons. They want to destroy the prisons. Where are you going to put rapists? Where are you going to put murderers? Where are you going to put people who use guns?
Do they ever answer that publicly, that question? Where would they like to put them?
Let me tell you, this is what one of the hysterical things. They believe in this idea that everyone should be open to restorative justice. So I asked one of their advocates, I said, so what happens when a woman gets raped? What do you expect her to do? Do you expect her to meet the person who raped her? And they said, yes. Well, what if she doesn't want to meet with him? Well, we'll bring in someone else to replace her, someone else who's had a similar experience.
What?
And so that they could have, this restorative justice effect.
Well, I don't understand.
This is their grand plan is this alternatives to incarceration. That's all they speak about. They also believe, to add to what you just said, Eric, that the criminal justice system is racist, that it disproportionately punishes people of color. And that kind of really, I think, propelled this a couple of years ago to the point where we are now.
Yeah, but we also have to acknowledge that the majority of folks that are harmed by violent crime are African Americans and Hispanics. And so these policies that they profess to be helping are actually hurting. And that's why you're seeing this kind of a revolt amongst crime victims in Los Angeles, because they're disgusted by these policies. They're disgusted by the fact that somebody is now telling them, no, we're not going to file a special circumstance, even though he killed, 4 people, 5 people. It really is quite devastating to what's happening here in Los Angeles.
And they were trying to sell us with Props 47 and I guess 57. We're going to save all this money on prisons and turn around and put it into these wonderful rehabilitation programs, which will get people away from the criminal justice system and back into society. I mean, that was also a bag of gas, wasn't it?
I think that, listen, any real prosecutor is going to say we want rehabilitation.
Is there any, though, in the state prisons?
Any rehab? Oh, I think there's some, but I think what's happening now, what you're seeing with these early releases, is all you're doing is limiting or perhaps even eliminating rehabilitation. You're just
Smiley Martin.
Yeah.
He got out real early, and now he's involved in the murder case in your county. That shooting.
The Sacramento.
Right. I have to be a little cautious
I know
because
you
it's
do.
pending.
I know, yeah, you're
But
involved in the
what I'm
prosecution,
asking is, so what was the rehabilitation process that he went through?
That's a good question for the Department of Corrections. That's a very good question, because anytime you are handing out credits like they're Halloween candy, as I say, the question is raised is, well, what did you do when you know that somebody has a history of assaultive behavior or domestic violence? I'm just talking in general. What did you do to fix that? When we just increased his credits for not doing something harmful.
If you're going to release 76,000 inmates, you're going to have to make this stuff up. And as you pointed out before, turbocharge the good time credits. You're going to have to do that.
That's what's happening right now. And that's why this lawsuit is critically important, because it is rewriting sentencing laws in California. Reducing they could basically, if they get their way, they could say we're going to give 9 days credit for every 1 day you actually serve.
Wow.
It's getting that way, isn't it?
It feels that way.
When you get 2/3 off and you're only serving a third of your time, it's getting pretty close. Well, thank you for coming in again.
Thanks for having me again.
And Eric, thank you for coming in.
Talking to you both.
Anne-Marie Schubert, she's running for district attorney.
Attorney General.
Sorry.
That's all right.
He's a DA.
You
Running
are
for
the
it.
district attorney in Sacramento. She's running for attorney general on the ballot against Rob Bonta. Vote for Anne-Marie Schubert. And with her today was Eric Siddall, the vice president of the Assistant District Attorneys Association here in Los Angeles, heavily involved in the recall of Gascon.
Yeah, that's recalldageorgegascon.com for more on that.
And
Thank you for that.
He's supporting Anne-Marie as well. All right. Anytime, come back.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. More coming up. John and Ken, KFI.
Well,